Your furnace fails, no firewood stacked outside. The night air cuts like a knife. But 1,000 years ago, Vikings faced the same cold without propane, without central heating, without even glass windows. Archaeologists in Iceland uncovered longhouses buried under turf, thick walls, low ceilings, fire pits lined with stone. Inside, families huddled together, wrapped in wool, smoke curling into the rafters. It wasn't pretty, but it kept them alive. Now imagine those same tricks refined by centuries of survival can still work for us today. No chainsaw, no log pile, just smart use of stone, earth fat, and cloth. In this video, we'll uncover 7 Viking heating hacks that can beat your furnace. Each one tested by time. Each one practical enough to use in a blackout or off the grid. Ready? Let's step inside the longhouse. Picture this. The power goes out. The furnace is dead. Outside, the wind claws at your windows and the temperature keeps falling. You're wrapped in blankets, maybe sipping coffee that's already turning cold. What do? Now step back 1,000 years. Scandinavia, the Viking Age. Long winters, endless nights, snow burying the fjords. They had no HVAC, no double-pane glass, no propane tanks stacked in the yard. And yet, they endured. They thrived. Archaeologists digging in Iceland and Greenland found turf houses with smoke-stained rafters and straw floors. In sagas recorded by Snorri Sturluson and in the writings of Ibn Fadlan, we see hints of how Norse families survived winters that would freeze most of us solid. The truth is, they knew tricks we've forgotten, tricks we can bring back. And in a blackout or off the grid, these ancient methods may work better than your modern furnace. Let's start with hack number 7, the Viking stone heat bank. Archaeologists excavating turf houses in Iceland found blackened fire pits lined with heavy stones. The idea was simple. Heat the rocks until they glowed red, then let them radiate warmth for hours. No furnace, no metal stove, just stone fire and patience. Imagine stepping into a Viking longhouse in the year 950. The wind howling off the fjords, snow piling against turf walls. Inside, stones pulled from the hearth glowed faintly in the dark, wrapped in wool or straw to hold their heat. Families would place them near bedding or under benches, turning cold rock into what we'd call today a thermal battery. It's the same principle modern preppers use when they heat bricks in a fireplace or set a cast iron pot on the coals. The rock soaks up energy like a sponge. Hours later, when the fire dies down, that stored heat still radiates. Think about it. In a blackout, no gas, no electricity stones are free. Bricks, cinder blocks, even an old Dutch oven will do the same job. You can stack them near a candle, a propane stove, or even out in the sun if you've got daylight. Then, when night falls, you've got a slow release of warmth, silent and steady. The Vikings mastered this 1,000 years ago. They turned cold, dead weight into life-saving warmth. For them, it was survival. For us, it might be the cheapest, most reliable emergency heater you'll ever have. And this is just the beginning. The next trick doesn't use stone at all, but soft layers that act like medieval bubble wrap. Hack number 6 is about layers, the Viking answer to insulation. Archaeologists studying turf houses in Norway and Iceland found not just thick walls, but traces of hides hung over doorways and scraps of woven wool stuffed into cracks. The sagas even describe warriors traveling with multiple tunics of wool, layered one on top of the other. It wasn't fashion, it was survival. Picture the scene, wind howling off the fjords, snow drifting in through gaps in the roof beams. A family inside hangs heavy animal skins across the entrance like medieval curtains. Thick wool blankets, straw mats on the floor, even cloaks pinned against window slits. Every layer slowed the escape of heat, creating a pocket of warmth in an otherwise freezing hall. Like a living wool blanket wrapped around the house itself. Now fast forward to us today. No need for fur from a reindeer hunt. The principle still works. Heavy curtains across drafty windows. Wool blankets hung behind doors. Rugs rolled out across bare floors. Every extra layer traps air, turning still cold rooms into spaces that actually hold warmth. And here's the beauty, you're not adding a single BTU. You're not burning more wood or cranking up the thermostat. You're simply keeping what little heat you already have from leaking away. Modern preppers know this trick well. Hang moving blankets in the garage, pin quilts over sliding glass doors, stack rugs for insulation. The Vikings didn't have fiberglass or spray foam. They had fur wool and common sense. It's simple, it's free, and it works. But as clever as that was, the next hack goes even deeper, literally into the ground. Hack number 5 takes us underground. The Vikings understood something simple but powerful. The earth itself holds steady warmth. Archaeologists studying turf houses in Iceland and Greenland noticed how many were dug partly into hillsides or built with thick sod packed against the walls. Dirt was insulation. Soil was a shield. Step just a few feet below the surface and the temperature is far more stable than the bitter wind above. Imagine a winter storm roaring over a fjord. Snow blinds the horizon, but inside a semi-dug longhouse, the floor rests against the cool, steady ground. Straw scattered across it. Families seated low closer to the earth, away from drafts that whipped across the roof beams. It wasn't luxury living, but it was protection. Mother Nature herself acting like a giant wool blanket. And here's where it clicks for modern prepping. Basements, root cellars, dugouts, every one of these works on the same principle. Whether you're storing potatoes or riding out a blackout, going underground buys you time and comfort. Even an improvised shelter half dug and covered with logs and soil will trap more heat than a thin cabin wall left exposed to the wind. Think of it as the original storm shelter. No lumberyard, no insulation factory, just earthstone and the patience to dig. For us today, that might mean retreating to a basement room during an outage, sealing drafts with blankets, and letting the ground's natural stability do the heavy lifting. It costs nothing. It's always there, and it works in every climate where the frost doesn't run too deep. The Vikings trusted the ground beneath their feet, and in the next hack, they trusted something even more personal, their own body heat. Hack number 4 is as old as humanity itself shared body heat. Excavations of Viking longhouses show wide wooden benches running along the walls covered in straw and animal hides. These weren't individual beds. They were communal sleeping pits. Families, sometimes servants, sometimes guests, lay shoulder to shoulder wrapped in wool and fur. The sagas describe feasting in the hall, then bedding down together under thick blankets, smoke curling through the rafters above. It wasn't just about space. It was survival. Every human body is like a tiny furnace, putting out about 100 watts of heat at rest. Alone, it's barely enough. But put 10 bodies together under the same cover, and you have a roaring fire of warmth, without striking a single spark. Picture a Viking winter outside the wind, screaming down the fjord ice forming on the roof beams. Inside, 20 people pressed together, fur cloaks layered on top. The air still cold but bearable, enough to keep frostbite at bay until the morning. And today, the same principle holds true. Preppers know that in an emergency, you don't spread out. You consolidate. Everyone in one room wrapped in blankets, maybe even huddled with pets. A dog at your feet or a cat curled against your side is more than comfort, it's survival-grade heat. You don't need electricity. You don't need firewood. You just need to use the warmth you already carry. It's free, it's reliable, and it's been saving lives since the Viking Age. Of course, body heat alone won't light the room. For that, the Norse had another trick lamps of fat and flame that gave both light and warmth. Hack number 3 brought both light and warmth, the Viking fat lamp. Excavations in Greenland and Iceland uncovered shallow stone bowls, their rims blackened with soot. Archaeologists believe these were oil lamps fueled not with olive oil, like in the Mediterranean, but with animal fat and fish oil, whales, seals, cod, whatever the Norse could render down into liquid fuel. A strip of twisted moss or fabric served as the wick. When lit, the flame was steady golden and surprisingly warm. Imagine stepping into a Viking hall on a long winter night. The fire in the central hearth burns low, but along the benches small stone lamps flicker, shadows dance across smoky rafters. The air smells of fish oil and wool. Each lamp not only gives light to see by, but pushes out a pocket of heat just enough to take the edge off the cold. It wasn't luxury, it was survival. A simple bowl of fat became a dual-purpose tool lantern and heater. And today, the same principle is still in use. Preppers make terracotta pot heaters with candles underneath concentrating warmth. Candle lanterns can keep a tent habitable on freezing nights. Even a simple jar of cooking oil, a wick, and a lighter can create hours of light and heat during a blackout. The beauty is efficiency. One resource, two life-saving functions. You're not just burning fuel, you're squeezing every bit of survival value out of it. The Vikings mastered this with what they had. And in a world without power, this old trick may once again light the dark and warm the night. But while fire gives light, it also escapes easily. The next hack is about trapping it, turning every flicker of heat into a shield against the cold. Hack number 2 was about making every flicker of heat count reflection and shielding. Excavations of Viking longhouses in Denmark and Norway revealed partitions of wood and stretched hides separating sleeping areas from the main hall. These weren't decorative dividers, they were functional heat traps. A single lamp or heated stone gives off little warmth in an open hall, but close it in with walls of hide or planks and suddenly that small flame feels bigger. Heat lingers, cold stays out. Picture it, a Viking family huddled on a straw floor. Above them, smoke curls into dark rafters. Around them, heavy skins hang from beams closing off a corner of the room. The lamp's glow reflects against the hides, bouncing warmth back at the sleepers. It's not a furnace, but it makes the difference between shivering and resting. The sagas rarely talk about such details, but the archaeology does. Blackened wooden posts, pegs that once held stretched hides, layers of soot where heat was concentrated. The evidence is there. Vikings built microclimates inside their longhouses, one small zone of bearable warmth within a frozen world. Modern survivalists know this principle by another name, the heat tent. Hang an emergency blanket behind a candle and it reflects heat. Pitch a tarp in your living room during a blackout and you trap warmth inside. Aluminum foil quilts, even cardboard, can serve as barriers. You're not making more energy, you're conserving it. That's the genius of Viking shielding. Less energy, more comfort, survival without waste. But their cleverest trick of all was architectural, how they designed entire longhouses to hold heat. And that, my friends, is hack number 1. And finally, hack number 1. The greatest Viking secret wasn't a single tool, but the design of their entire home, the Longhouse. Excavations in Iceland, Norway, and even Newfoundland show the same pattern. Long, narrow halls, turf piled thick against the walls, roofs pitched low, heavy with sod. A central hearth burned day and night, its smoke drifting through rafters blackened with centuries of use. Sleeping areas were tucked along the sides, insulated with straw and earth. Everything about the design created what we'd call today a microclimate, a small zone of livable warmth in the middle of a frozen wilderness. Picture the scene. Outside, the wind screams off the fjords. Snow buries the land. But step into the longhouse and you feel it. The ceiling presses low, holding heat. The turf walls block the gale. The central fire warms not the whole building, but the core where families ate, talked, and slept. It was efficient, rugged, and built entirely from the land itself. Modern preppers can learn from this immediately. Don't try to heat the entire house when the power goes out. Shrink your world, pick one room, seal it off with blankets, rugs, or plastic. Put your heat source in the middle and live close. Just like the Vikings, you're not fighting winter everywhere. You're creating one pocket of survival you can actually defend. That's why they made it through Scandinavian winters, not because they conquered the cold, but because they learned to control space. Less wasted energy, more focused warmth. That is the Viking way. And it's why, even today, the Longhouse remains a lesson in survival architecture. So, let's recap. 7 Viking hacks for warmth without firewood. Stone heat banks turning rocks into thermal batteries. Layered insulation wool, hides, and straw trapping warmth. Earth shelters using the ground itself as a blanket. Shared body heat, communal sleeping pits 100 watts at a time. Fat lamps golden light that also radiates warmth. Heat reflection skins and boards bouncing every flicker of fire back inside. And finally, the Longhouse itself, a survival machine designed to create microclimates. The furnace may quit, the grid may fail, but Viking wisdom doesn't. Which of these hacks would you trust first when the lights go out? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you want more winter survival secrets drawn from history and tested in the wild, hit that subscribe button. The old ways still have lessons for us today.